Good morning, friends. Perseverance, or staying power, is such an important quality in life. The year was 1935. Paul and Virginia Weidman went as Assemblies of God missionaries to what was then Upper Volta, now the country of Burkina Faso. They took with them their boys, Paul Jr., 5, and Johnny, 3, and within a year's time, Paul Jr. had learned the Mosi language so well that already out in the villages, when his father would go out to preach, his father had not yet learned the language. Little Paul would stand beside his daddy, and his daddy would preach a sentence in English, and little Paul would translate it into fluent Mosi, and the African people loved this little boy dearly. At the age of 7, after being in Africa for 2 years, Paul Jr. died of blackwater fever. He's buried in Tengudagu, a town in southern Burkina Faso. Shortly after he died, Paul Weidman came down with malarial dysentery, and for almost a year fought tremendous intermittent fever. One night in the middle of his illness, a violent rain came down and literally caved in the roof of their African house. Virginia was expecting their next child, and she bundled up her sick husband and her little boy Johnny and got them to the major city of Ouagadougou, and there began having problems with her pregnancy and was told to go to bed or she would lose the baby that they were going to have. And then 2 weeks before the baby was born, the government itself collapsed. In 1 year's time, that family, Paul and Virginia, had lost their boy, had fought malarial dysentery, had had the roof literally fall in on them, had had problems in pregnancy, and the government had collapsed. They had said, if we have a baby girl, we were going to call her Beulah Joy, but we decided after all those things had happened that all we had left was our faith. So when the baby was born and it was a girl, they called her Faith. And when Uncle Paul, for that was my uncle, got better, he knelt by his bed and he prayed one day, "Oh God, give me strength one more time." He went back to the region of Tengudagu and Dupongo, where his little boy had died, and there he helped to establish the Church of Jesus Christ. Some decades later, as a retired missionary, he went back to that area of the world, and the old pastor whom he had mentored as a young man, Daika Ega, saw him coming across the church ground, and the two old men ran into each other's arms and began to weep and dance and wail. And in between the laughs and the tears, Daika Ega, the African pastor, said to him, "Oh, missionary, it was worth it all. Today there are churches everywhere." And indeed, in that country of Burkina Faso today of 8 million people, there are over 800,000 believers in Assemblies of God churches alone, the result of missionaries like my aunt and uncle who knew the value of perseverance, who understood that it was important to have staying power and knew the significance of a prayer, "Oh God, give me strength one more time." Perhaps you need to pray that prayer in your life today because you're facing something very difficult and hard. God can give you that strength and can turn this difficulty into a moment later of sweetness and joy and resiliency in your life. He waits for you to call Him to give you the strength that you need.